I am 80 years old, and I want to tell you something that took me 50 years of working to finally understand. Something that nobody said out loud when I was young and hungry, and certain that if I just followed the rules, if I just did everything they told me to do, everything would turn out the way they promised. I followed every single rule, every single one. And I am sitting here at 80, telling you that the rules were not written for you. They were written for someone else. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you can stop living someone else's dream and start figuring out what yours actually looks like. The American dream. I believed in it the way you believe in something that is so big and so everywhere that questioning it feels almost unpatriotic. You work hard, you save, you buy the house, you raise the family, you retire with dignity. That was the promise. That was the deal. And I shook hands on it at 22 years old and gave the next 5 decades of my life to it without once stopping to read what was in the fine print. There was a lot in the fine print. Things they never told me. Things I suspect they never wanted me to know. I want to tell you about my father first, because this story does not start with me. It starts with him. His name was Walter, and he came to this country with almost nothing. And he believed in this dream with a ferocity that I think only immigrants can fully understand. He worked in a factory for 31 years, the same factory, the same line, 6 days a week for most of those years, and 5 days when the union finally won enough to make that possible. He was proud of that work. He was proud of being the kind of man who showed up without complaint and did what was asked, and never once caused trouble. He bought a small house in 1958 with a mortgage that stretched him thin for a decade. He put 3 children through school. He was a good man, doing everything the dream asked of him. He retired at 64. His body was worn in the particular work wears a body, the back that never fully straightened, the hands that ached in cold weather, the hearing in his left ear that had been slowly taken by 3 decades of machinery. He had about $14,000 in savings. He had a small pension, and he had about 9 years left to live, most of them careful and quiet, and spent worrying about whether the money would last. He died at 73 without ever taking the trip to see the country he had spent 31 years building. He always said, next year when things settle, next year when the money is a little more comfortable. Next year never came for my father. It used up all its years before he could spend any of them. I watched that. I watched every bit of it, and I went out into the world at 22, absolutely determined to do it better. Work smarter, save more, plan carefully, get ahead of it. And in the ways that were measurable, I did do it better. I earned more than my father. I saved more than my father. I retired with more security than my father ever had. And I still ended up sitting in a chair at 70, asking myself the same question he never got to answer. Was this the life I actually wanted? Or was this the life I was handed and accepted without looking too closely at the terms? Now I need to stop here for just a moment because if what I am saying is reaching you, if something in your chest is nodding along right now, I want you to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon. I am not asking for a favor. I am telling you that this conversation is going to continue, and there are things I have left to say that matter more than what I have said so far. And I do not want you to miss them because you forgot to come back. The bell icon means you will not have to remember. It will remember for you. Do that now and then stay with me. Here is what the dream sold us that nobody questioned loudly enough. It sold us the idea that security was the goal. Not joy, not meaning, not a life that felt genuinely chosen, just security. A safe house in a safe neighborhood, with a safe job and a safe retirement account, and enough safety stacked on top of safety that you could finally exhale. And so that is what we chased. An entire generation of people, my generation, chased safety with everything we had. We traded risk for stability and adventure for predictability, and the wild, uncertain possibility of a life built around what we actually loved, for the guaranteed moderate comfort of a life built around what was practical and sensible and approved by everyone around us. And we got what we chased, most of us. We got the safety, and then we retired into it and discovered that safety alone is one of the quietest and most suffocating things a human being can be surrounded by. I want to tell you about a man I worked with for 20 years named Carl. Carl was the most disciplined person I have ever known in my life. Every raise he got, half of it went straight into savings without touching the checking account. Every bonus saved. He drove the same car for 11 years. He brought his lunch to work in a paper bag every single day, the same lunch, a sandwich and an apple and a small bag of crackers, because he had calculated that doing so would save him roughly $42,000 over the course of his career. I remember him telling me that number and being genuinely impressed. Carl had a plan, and Carl executed the plan with a consistency that I found almost religious in its devotion. Carl retired at 62 with more money than anyone in our office had ever retired with. He had done everything right by every measure the dream provided. His house was paid off. His children were educated. His account was healthy enough that he genuinely did not need to worry about money for the rest of his life. He had won the game completely. I had lunch with Carl 3 years into his retirement. He looked like a man waiting for a bus that was not coming. Not depressed exactly, suspended, like someone had pressed pause on him and he was waiting for the play button and it kept not appearing. He told me that he had spent so long planning for the destination that he had never once thought about what he wanted to do when he arrived there. He had optimized so aggressively for security that he had never asked himself what he wanted to feel secure enough to actually do. His days were fine, he said. Fine was the exact word he used. Things were fine. His lunch bag from work was still in a drawer at home. His wife had found it while cleaning and asked if she should throw it out. He told her to leave it. I asked him why, and he was quiet for a moment, and then he said he was not entirely sure. I think I know why. That lunch bag was the last object that connected him to the version of himself that had a daily purpose, a place to be, a role that other people depended on him to fill. Without it, fine was the best available word. Let me tell you what the dream never mentioned. It never mentioned that purpose is not something you arrive at after the work is done. Purpose is the work. Not the job necessarily, but the act of being useful, of showing up for something, of having a reason to get up that is bigger than your own comfort. The dream told us to work hard now and live later. And the cruelest part of that bargain is that later has a habit of arriving before you have figured out what living actually means, for you specifically, in your specific life, with your specific soul. And I want to ask you something right now. Drop your honest answer in the comments below. What did you dream of doing when you were young that you talked yourself out of because it was not practical enough? I genuinely want to know. Because I think a lot of people watching this have a very specific answer to that question and have not said it out loud to anyone in years. Say it here. You are among people who understand. Here is the other thing the dream did not tell us. It told us that the house was the foundation. Own the home, and you own your security. And so we bought houses we could barely afford and spent 20 and 30 years feeding mortgages that consumed the decades when we had the most energy and the most capacity for risk and the most time to recover from mistakes if we made them. We turned ourselves into servants of the mortgage. We took jobs we did not love because the jobs paid enough to cover the payment. We stayed in cities that did not fit us because the house was there, and the house was the anchor. We built our entire lives around a monthly payment to a bank and called it the American dream, when really it was the American obligation dressed up in the language of achievement. My father believed the house would give him freedom. It gave him a place to worry from. I am not telling you not to own a home. I am telling you to own it with clear eyes, to know what you are trading for it, and to decide consciously whether that trade is one you genuinely want to make, or one you are making because everyone around you is making it, and the alternative feels too uncertain to seriously consider. The dream was not entirely a lie. I want to be fair about that. The parts of it that were true, the parts about hard work producing real results, about saving, creating genuine options, about building something that outlasts you, having real meaning. Those parts were true, but they were mixed in with other parts that served the economy more than they served the people living inside it. The part that said consumption was the measure of a good life, that the size of your house reflected the size of your character, that what you owned was a reasonable shorthand for who you were, that working for someone else your whole life was the safe choice, when really it was just the familiar one. I spent 50 years inside this dream, and I want to tell you what I see clearly now that I could not see from the inside. The dream was excellent at producing workers, patient, disciplined, compliant workers who showed up and consumed and saved and retired and made room for the next generation of workers to do the same. It was less interested in producing people who asked hard questions about what they actually wanted from the one life they were given. Those questions were inconvenient. They were not in the brochure. If you are in your 30s or 40s watching this, you still have enough time to ask those questions and actually do something with the answers. That is not a small thing. That is everything. The question is not, how do I succeed at the dream? The question is whether the dream, as it was handed to you, is actually the life you want. And those are completely different questions with completely different answers, and only one of them is worth your one life. Now here is what I ask you to do, and I am asking sincerely, as one human being to another, across however many decades separate us. Subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon right now if you have not already. We are going to keep having these conversations about money and meaning and what we were told and what was true and what you can still choose differently. You do not want to miss what is coming. The bell costs you nothing, and it might give you something you did not know you were looking for. Carl figured some things out eventually. A few years into his retirement, he started mentoring young people at a local business school, informally, just conversations over coffee. No salary, no title, just a man with 50 years of experience and a genuine desire to help people avoid the specific mistakes he had made. He told me it was the first time in years he had felt like himself, not his working self, a new version, one that had something real to give. He started eating out for lunch, not because it was financially strategic, just because he liked it and he could, and he finally gave himself permission to like things simply because he liked them. He threw away the old lunch bag. He told me Francis cried a little when he did it, and he said he understood why. He found it late, but he found it, and the fact that he found it at all is worth more than any retirement account balance I have ever seen on a piece of paper. I am 80 years old. I worked for 50 years inside a dream that was partially true and partially a very effective piece of cultural engineering. I do not say that with bitterness. I say it with the clear eyes of someone who has had enough time to see the whole picture. The work was real. The love I built my life around was real. The moments that mattered were real. But the framework, the story I was given about what those moments were supposed to add up to, that story had some significant omissions. And you deserve to know about the omissions before you build your whole life around the same framework without questioning it. The dream is not the enemy. Swallowing it whole without ever asking if it fits you, that is the enemy. Try it on. See what parts are genuinely yours and what parts were handed to you by someone who needed you to believe them. Keep what is true. Put down what was never yours to carry. And one more thing before I go. I want you to leave a comment below telling me one thing you believed about success when you were young that you now see differently. Not to be negative, just to be honest with each other, the way people our age are finally free to be. You have got wisdom in you that younger people need to hear, and the comment section is the place to put it. Say something real. I will read every one. I am 80 years old. I have been where you are going. And if I can save you even 5 years of chasing something that was never quite what it claimed to be, then this conversation was worth having. The dream was not the destination. You were always the destination. Go find your way home.